Hi everyone, it's Tonya, and today I want to share with you a process video of this mixed media layout featuring products from Die-Namites Dies. We're going to use the flowering branch, beautiful ornament, large ivy, and holiday angel dies today. And I've also based today's layout on this sketch by Sketchabilities. It's number 128. So let's go ahead and I'm starting out with a standard white piece of cardstock, and this is the Heidi Swap Color Shine in Seafoam. It is a really nice minty green colored pigment, and then a really beautiful iridescent green shimmer. So I'm going to lightly mist that and then make some splatters over the top of that, and then I'm going to make sure it's really good and dry before continuing on to the next step. Now I'm taking the faded text background stamp from Stampabilities and adding the Ranger Archival ink from Wendy Vecchi. This is watering can. I'm using a paper towel to go around the edges so that I don't have any harsh edges when I do my stamping. And I've only inked the pad up one time and then adding it throughout the spread. Now I've taken this over to my sewing machine and added some stitching in a really nice gold thread. The gold thread is really rich, and I love it. But I'm also decided that I wanted to add some embossing to this, so I grabbed out the Tinseling Company stamp set from Teresa Collins, and I've taken the star pattern from that stamp set, and I'm going to cascade that down across my stitching at the top, and then I'm also going to use it to accent the cluster that is going to be down in the bottom left hand corner. Now I'm using my Versamark ink to add that, and then now I'm going to use the Ranger Queen's Gold embossing powder and just heat set that really well so that the pigment melts. And now you can really see that it looks like gold foiling on this paper. So gorgeous. I've decided to keep with the same color tones throughout my entire layout. I found this scrap of scalloped trim that has been in my stash for about a year now, so I'm using that up here along the horizontal stitching line. This is going to be the base for my embellishment cluster around my photo. And I've also grabbed out some of that gold thread from the machine, and I'm just going to twist that around my hands to make like a little lasso of this thread. And I'm going to add that there over the top of that scalloped edge. Now I want this to stay somewhat organic, but this thread does like to move around a lot, so I'm adding just a small bead of hot glue to the thread to keep it in place. It's not going to be a permanent bond because you'll watch me, I'll lift it later, but the other embellishments will be able to hold it down. So I had this idea to take the large ivy die and spritz it with this Seafoam color shine, and I did it on a sheet of paper because it's a lot of green and all of that overspray would ordinarily be lost. So what I decided to do was spritz onto this piece of paper so that I could die cut more of these out of the scrap once it's dry. But then as I was spritzing it, I was like, oh, that's a really cool pattern that it's left there. It would be really nice as a background of a card. But I think what I'm going to do instead is just die cut it with some more dies later. I found this little scrap of hymnal page over in my bucket of items that are left on my desk at the end of each project. So I've added it on top of the scallop, and now I'm taking that large ivy die. It's completely dry. Make sure it's really dry before you do with anything with it. And I've cut it in half so that I can make it a little bit smaller than what it was for my embellishment clusters. It was just a little too bulky for these little small flowers. These are crocheted flowers that came from Prima, and I'm just going to add those there into that cluster at the top. And then I found this little piece of vellum that had embossing paste on it that was in gold, and it was just a piece of scrap on my desk, so I've decided to use it as well in my embellishment cluster there on the left. Now I have added it in the cluster coming down over the thread and at the top, but it's going to get removed before the layout is finished. I didn't like the way it looked up there. It just was kind of lonely. So now what I'm doing is I have these little wood veneer chevrons from Studio Calico. So I'm going to add those right there in the center of the lasso and on top of the scallop trim. I decided to leave all of my wooden embellishments unfinished. I like the look of the bare wood up against all of the gold and the green. It just follows that organic theme that we have going on here. Now I'm going to take that large ivy die again, cut it in half, and then use it down in the bottom to finish out that little embellishment cluster. Now I have a large one of those crocheted flowers from Prima that I'm adding there to the center, and I'm also going to add some of these little tiny trees that came from Studio Calico. These are wood veneer trees. I got them last year, so I'm not sure if they're even still available, but they were super cool. And I love to use older products on my layouts when I make them too. It helps to kind of thin out the stash a little bit. So these are little tiny words from Studio Calico, and I'm just going to add them around. And I think that one says this is happening or something. I can't see it in the video, and I don't have the layout in front of me to reference it, but it's super cute. So then I've decided to add the Holiday Angel to this layout. I'm just going to use my Versa ink to ink that up, and now I'm going to use the Queen's Gold embossing powder to emboss her, and using some tweezers to pick her up, and then heat set her as well. I just love all of these gold accents up against the soft green. I think that it pops. It's very sophisticated. It's very soft and feminine, and it's going to accent my picture just perfect. And you know, I love the fact that these are all Christmas icons because the picture that I'm going to use was um, I took it yesterday. My sister-in-law called and asked me to come take some pictures of my nieces, so we had some fun yesterday just playing dress up and playing around a little bit. So I've also had this idea to use the beautiful ornament die on this layout. I thought at first I was only going to use the bottom of the ornament, so you see me only inking up the bottom and heat embossing it, and then later I decided to come back and use the whole ornament. So it's kind of one of those things where I didn't really know where I was going with it. I knew the look I was after, but I really wasn't sure, you know, how I wanted to finish it off. And I love the small piece there, but the lesson here is that you can cut these dies down and make them useful. And I love how I was able to even still go back because I had the large ivy die there on the top. I was able to go back and add the top part of that die to that as well, even though I'd cut it apart. So you'll see me add that in just a moment. But look at how beautiful the angel is up there at the top. So now here it is. I've decided I really think I have space for the whole ornament. At first I didn't think there was enough space, but there ended up being. So I'm using my paintbrush to paint up the top of that ornament where the foliage is with the sea foam. And these two colors are so gorgeous together. This gold with the sea foam. It's just so beautiful. I don't even think the pictures can really do it justice. But here I'm going to go ahead and heat emboss the bottom part of that ornament. And look at how beautiful this is. Like I said, you get really three different looks from this one die if you trim it or if you leave it as it's intended to be. So here you can see where I'm nesting that back inside that area, and I just had Elmer's glue already on my desk, so I just pulled it out to add that to that spot there. and it's just so gorgeous. Look at just it's just beautiful. I mean, I can't um, just quit looking at this. It's just so gorgeous. So now you can see where I pulled that little piece of vellum loose, and I have it here. I'm just going to reattach it, maybe going out towards the right. I just felt like it was a little too distracting and too bulky coming down under the flowers, so I'm just going to do it horizontal across the bottom of the flowers. Now I've decided to take some of that flowering branch dye and I heat embossed it as well with the gold. To me, this dye mimics the look of those stars really well, and I'm only going to apply glue at the base of the die so that whenever I glue it down, part of the branches will stick up. And here I'm going to add a third flower up in the top cluster. Now here's another one of the wood veneer pieces. I'm not quite sure what it says, but you'll see it at the very end of the video. And then this is the other part of that branch die, that flowering branch die. I cut it in half, so I'm going to add it down here in the bottom too. I love how this is starting to look like a Christmas tree, to be honest with you. So I decided I had a little bitty hole there next to those trees. It was just a little bit of trap space, so I decided to add another one of those little wood veneer trees. This joy piece is a piece of chipboard from the Tinseling Company, chipboard embellishments from Teresa Collins. So I've just cut off the edge. It was just a little bit too long, so I just cut it down. And then now I'm adding another one of those flowers there. So I've got my photo, and I'm only going to add the foam adhesive to the top because I want it to kind of have a, be on different levels. So I'm tucking it under some of the elements in the embellishment cluster, and then I'm also pulling up those ivy dies so that they can hang down over the top of the photo so that the photo is really nestled between the two embellishment clusters. And then that's about it. I think I've decided to go ahead and add a few of the flat back pearls to the center of my flowers here. It's just another little soft element. I wanted to keep those as white as they could be. I went back and forth about buttons or flat back pearls, but I like the clean look of the flat back pearls here. So I'm adding them to the top embellishment clusters as well. You can really see how rich and shiny the gold is on this layout, and you can really see the metallic color of those leaves as well. So I just absolutely love this. This is probably going to be one of my all-time favorite layouts that I've ever done. But here we go. The last and final touch is to use my Wink of Stella on the Joy. Everything else was so shiny that it needed a little help as well. So this is just the clear Wink of Stella. So here is our final touches, and this is happiness is what that wood veneer says, and then at the top it says little things, which I think is just gorgeous. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. As always, if you have enjoyed this production, please make sure you thumbs up, leave a comment, and also share this with a friend. I will put a link to everything down below in the description, and as well as there's a blog post that accompanies this that has more detailed photos with it as well. So thank you so much for hanging out.